Hello. The first 2.5 years of my life here in France were what I now call a sabbatical. But back then, I didn't call it a sabbatical. And had I might not have ever made my way to France. And in this video, I'm going to share with you the reason I say that and some of the things that I've learned and gained from taking time off from work. Now, I was not in education and nobody paid for me to not work. I was living off of savings. And so it was challenging, but so well worth it. So stay tuned. And this is a ride along video. So enjoy the footage of my drive along the Mediterranean coast.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for subscribing and watching and liking and commenting. I truly appreciate you. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Patricia Brooks, and in 2018, I left my job as a project manager and I moved to France. And this was a move that I had hoped would be a permanent thing, but I didn't know. I was telling myself this is where I need to be. And I sold all of my things and I got on a plane and I moved to France where I didn't know anybody. And I just needed to be in France. That's all I knew. But not having a job to go into left me with a lot of spare time to do things, including think, right? And thinking can sometimes not be the best thing to do when you're in a place that you don't know, far away from friends and family, where you have some doubt about your ability to pull it off once you have the time to think. And so that's what happened to me. So I spent so much time. My biggest project over the last 1.5, 2 years before my move was getting to France. And now I had reached that goal and I hadn't replaced that goal with something else. And so I was not in a good place mentally. So then 3 weeks after, I just started to doubt myself. So I recognized after having been a guest on a podcast, fellow coach Lauren Lemunyon at the Spitfire podcast, that I really enjoyed being interviewed by her. And I also liked how she interviewed me. And I thought, Patricia, I think that now is the time for you to start that podcast now. Years and years earlier, when podcasts weren't even really a thing or they were just getting started, I'd had an inkling that I wanted to do a podcast. But now I had the time to do it, right? I had the experience as a guest doing it. And so that's what I set out to do. So one of the things that I gained on my sabbatical was becoming a podcaster, having a podcast, learning the art of podcasting and all the technical stuff that goes behind it, and meeting people, reaching out to people, all of that. And that has been amazing. Now, I did my podcast from June of 2018 through November or December of 2021, having an episode every week. And that was a lot of fun. And the main reason I stopped it was because I was no longer on sabbatical, number one. So I didn't have the extra time. I started my own business and I was building a YouTube channel. And something had to give. And so it was the podcasting. But I still have episodes out there. And if you want to listen, it's called the Discovering Courage podcast. Initially, I just spoke to anybody who did something that I thought was courageous, that was out of their comfort zone. And then the later episodes do talk about people who have become nomadic or moved abroad and their experiences there. So you feel free to check that out. So that's thing number one that I gained from taking a sabbatical. Now, I mentioned in the opening that had I called what I did the first couple of years here in France sabbatical, I might not have done that. And that's because I was raised to be productive, to produce, to earn money, to have a job that in some way made something happen. And taking time off, not earning money, and just kind of doing what I felt like doing was not anything I had ever grown up to do, was taught to do, was taught was okay to do. So it would have felt wrong to just quit a job and hang out and figure out what was going to happen next the day of. And so that is why I said that. And I think many people can relate to this idea of got to be doing something, got to be producing something, got to have something to show for the time that you put in a day. And so the second thing that I learned on my sabbatical was, no, not doing anything sometimes is productive. And it has been for me. And I'm going to go into some of the other ways it has been. But having that thought, I'm going to take time off and just do nothing or write or do something that might not produce income didn't feel right. So that is something else I've gained from this sabbatical. But what else did I do on my sabbatical? People are considering taking time off from work, gap years, or work breaks. And I think, some people might think, well, what would I do? They have this idea of being productive. And it's a foreign concept. I saw a post a couple of days ago where a woman said, I'm considering taking some time off, a month off. She didn't have a lot of time to take off, but she wanted to do this career break. But she said, I'm not really sure what to do. I'm be interested in suggestions. And I responded to her that I told her my situation, how I'd left my job, moved to France, and really to explore and to figure some things out. And in the process, I became more creative. And that my suggestion was to do things that tap into that creative side of you. Whether that's to write, whether that's reading, whether that's painting or drawing, whether that's dancing, whether that's singing, whether that's anything that taps into something that feels creative and may not feel necessarily that productive, since, we sometimes negate creativity as productive. Do that. And I said, go for it. And, she liked what I had said, and a couple other people, hearted what I had said. So I think that resonated. So I thought that I'd share some other ways that I was creative in my sabbatical and how it was not a waste of time. So the first thing I did was the podcasting. The second thing, and I did move to France with this kind of in mind. I'd already written the first book, and that was quite enjoyable. But I thought, I want the subject of my second book to be the fact that I made this move abroad. The problem with that was in my first year, I was still just doing the thing that I wanted to write about. I wasn't beyond it. And so didn't have hindsight, didn't have perspective on what I was experiencing. And so while I wanted to write my second book in my first year here in France, that came in year 2 when I was able to say, okay, I've been here a year. What is it that I have gleaned from this, and what is it that I want to talk about? But second year was still part of my sabbatical. And so I wrote that second book. And while it was different from anything that I had imagined, I think it's a very powerful book that helps people think through doing the thing they want to do but are afraid to do. And in addition to writing and working with an editor and having that edited and self-publishing, I also decided I wanted to have this book translated also into French. And so I reached out to my translator, and he agreed. And we worked on that together. And so that was the project. And I enjoy that effort. It was something that I actually paid for, not anything I was being paid to do. But I enjoyed that because that helped to enhance my my skills, my language skills in French. Because going back and forth and saying how to best say something that is challenging to translate is a great way to learn different words and phrases and the nuances of that. And so that was something else I did, something else creative that I did on my sabbatical. And that felt really good. I did travel just a little bit in my first year. The apartment I was staying in was a vacation rental by owner. And like 3 weeks in August that year had already been booked out. And so I was going to be displaced. I could get the apartment. I could have it for the year, but I was going to be displaced and would have to find someplace else for that time. And I'd considered just getting a place for 3 weeks in Perpignan, the city I was living in at the time. And then it dawned on me, well, Patricia, you are so close to other places to travel to. While you're not a big traveler, why not take advantage of this? And that's what I did. I went to Berlin. I went to London. I went to Amsterdam, which was a place that was the only place I had ever wanted to travel internationally for a long time. And it was a great trip. It helped to further my knowledge in my ability that I could solo travel and figure things out, find my way. So that is another thing that I gained from my sabbatical. Now, the fifth thing that I gained was that I improved my language skills, and I'd say I became fluent in French. I'd say a year and a half in or 2 years in, I was at a place where I could claim fluency, although at the time I didn't. Looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, if I described fluency as X, Y, and Z, I was doing those things. So that is another thing that I did on my sabbatical. And during my first year, at the end of my first year, I was at a crossroads because here I was using my savings to live, which still felt a little bit uncomfortable. And I didn't have in sight a way that I would be able to support myself financially. And so in speaking with a French friend, he said, oh, you should go to school, become a student, get a student visa, because that's a great way to be able to stay here. And I looked into it very, very briefly and recognized that I didn't want to do that. That was not something that felt good. It felt wrong. It felt against everything that I was doing in having quit my job, moved to France, and having some free time. And so I decided against going for a student visa in my second year and chose to come on a visitor visa my second year. And so this alludes to the next thing that I learned about myself, or learned on my sabbatical, and that was intuitive living. Now, you might say, well, what is intuitive living? All of my life, most of my life, I have done the logical thing, right? I've said, okay, I've got a decision to make. I've got a choice to make. So let me look at like the pros and cons of it, or let me look at the logical thing. Well, if I do this, then what would happen, and that what would happen, and what would set me up for the place that I thought that I wanted to go. And so that's the way I lived my life. My first job out of college was one I knew I would be miserable at. During that interview, the in-person interview, after having a battery of psychological tests, I left the building and I just wanted to run away from the building. It was almost like I felt like I wanted to run and take a shower. I just felt like that was not the place for me. But they'd offered me a job and I'd asked to think about it. It didn't give me much time to think about it, but when I'd gotten home to my mom's house, and the phone was ringing, and she said it was for you, it was them asking if I'd accept it. And I didn't have the confidence, courage to say, I need a night to sleep on it. And so then I accepted this job I knew I didn't want. Because logically, I'd be able to pay my student loans that were going to be coming due. Logically, I wouldn't have to be looking for a job, which looking for a job wasn't the most favorite thing of mine. And so I took this job I knew I'd be miserable at. And I was. A month in, I woke up covered in chronic hives, and I had hives for the next 8 months until I was fired because it wasn't a good job fit. It wasn't a good job fit because they were doing discriminatory practices, but that's a video for another day. And that's how I lived my life. I would do something against my better judgment, my intuition, because it was logical. Well, my move to France was not logical. My move to Perpignan was not logical. People said, oh, if you're going to move to France, move to Toulouse because, well, a lot of businesses speak English there and you can get a job there, right? Well, my mind wasn't really thinking about, oh, I'm going to move to France and get a job. Although I did tell people that's what I was going to do. Because, well, you don't tell people, I'm just going to go to France and hang out, right? It just doesn't feel good, especially coworkers. So my move to France was an intuitive hit, and I followed and listened to it. It was something that I did not feel like I could not do. So that got me here. But then doing things like, saying, oh yeah, student visa might be the next logical thing. I've been here in France. I know I want to stay here. Oh yeah, just get that. Because then that'll allow me to work maybe 10 hours or 20 hours a week. Well, because that will speed my path to citizenship if I get a degree. But I knew I didn't want to sit in the classroom. That felt constrictive or constricting. And my life here in France was not anything but that. So learning to live more intuitively. And while I haven't perfected that, I am at a place where I'm really pretty good at that. I, have my own business now, and that means you need to be pretty disciplined. And I am, I'm consistent in doing certain things. However, sometimes I will opt to write on my third book instead of do something where I can see that, oh, this is an income producing activity at the end of the day or week or month, right? Whereas writing a book is something that's enjoyable, it's creative, and I will publish and make some sales on it, but that doesn't necessarily mean those sales are something that they will contribute. But how much they will contribute to my ability to live is to be known, to be seen, versus some of the activities I can do in my business that will bring on new clients in my program or help me develop and improve my program, okay? Which will then in turn help attract new clients, right? So I will sometimes get up and say, oh, I should, and I will sometimes hear myself say, oh, you should do this for your business. But in my heart, I'm like, oh, but you are on a roll here with this writing and you want to just kind of develop this a little bit further. And so I do that. And that feels good to me. That feels intuitive to me. Actually working with a client who is very structured. It's interesting. They say that in coach training, they said, oh, you're going to coach people who you need to coach because in coaching them, you are getting exactly what you need in that moment. And so I'm coaching this woman now, and she's been in France for a year and feels like some of the structure that she had when she was in the States and working has kind of gotten a little looser, and she's not comfortable with that. And so we're working on, having structure so that she has that stability that makes her feel good, but that also she does it in a way that allows her to enjoy her retirement, that allows her to enjoy her life in her new country, without feeling guilt or without feeling lazy or without feeling like she's not being productive, right? So intuitive living, and I think this is one of the big takeaways that I've gained from taking this sabbatical the first couple of years in my life here in France. And the next thing that, my sabbatical gave me I gained from my sabbatical was a new career. Had I continued on doing what I was doing as a project manager, not really feeling it anymore, I don't really know where I would be in life. I would still probably be a project manager. I'd still probably be working on some of the same projects I was working on and not finding the joy in life. And I'd be counting down the days till retirement. But having that time off allowed me to, number one, explore this beautiful country, become fluent, write my second book. But number two, allowed me to recognize how incredible it feels to have been able to find the confidence and courage, not necessarily just quit my job, but to move abroad and do something that was outside of the realm of possibilities for me before. And so that is something that felt really good. And having been trained as a coach before I made my move abroad, I had this coaching skill and decided that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to coach. And so the skill I had met this desire to help people who were just like me make a move abroad confidently and sustainably. And so in that space and time of being and not just doing to produce and to earn money, I found a second career that is so enjoyable for me and which empowers other women, but also is affirming to me as well. Had I stayed doing what I was doing, this opening would not have happened, at least not in this niche.
So there you have it. That's the reason that in the beginning, I had not called my sabbatical a sabbatical, but why it truly was a sabbatical, and the things that I have gained and learned from taking time off, time that I before would have called unproductive, but now know how untrue that is. If you are thinking about taking time off and moving abroad, but you aren't really sure where to start, or maybe you know exactly where to start, but you're not doing anything about it, you're procrastinating because you've got some fears and doubts that are cropping up for you, I'd love to have a conversation. Be sure to click the link to my calendar, which I have put in the description of this video, so that you can find a time for us to talk and we can see where you are, where you want to be, where you want to move, why you want to get there, and if our working together could help move you through some of those obstacles. So that is all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, subscribe, make a comment, and check out these videos here because I know you're going to enjoy those too. That is all I have for you today. Bye for now.